Have you ever wondered how someone could witness the most spectacular miracles in human history and then completely abandon their faith just weeks later? What kind of betrayal could be so devastating that it would echo through thousands of years of history, leaving scars that still burn today? Well, brace yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will shake everything you thought you knew about loyalty, faith, and the human heart. This is the story of Israel's ultimate betrayal, a moment so shocking that it stands as one of the darkest chapters in biblical history. Picture this. You've just escaped 400 years of brutal slavery through 10 earth-shattering plagues that brought the mightiest empire on earth to its knees. You've walked through walls of water on dry ground while your enemies drowned behind you. You've been fed supernatural bread from heaven and watched water gush from solid rock. And then, in a moment of uncertainty, you throw it all away for a golden statue. This isn't just ancient history, this is a mirror reflecting the deepest struggles of the human soul. Drop a 777 in the comments if you're ready to discover how this ancient betrayal reveals truths about ourselves that we'd rather not face. The story we're diving into today isn't just about some religious rule-breaking. It's about covenant, about promises made and promises shattered. It's about what happens when fear meets faith and fear wins. And here's what will blow your mind. This isn't just Israel's story, it's humanity's story. Every twist, every choice, every moment of this ancient drama plays out in our lives today in ways that are both terrifying and profound. Trust me, by the end of this journey, you'll never look at commitment, loyalty, or faith the same way again. Why did Israel commit the ultimate betrayal at Mount Sinai? The Bible's shocking answer. There exists a moment in human history so devastating, so complete in its betrayal, that it stands as the defining example of covenant violation. At the base of Mount Sinai, while thunder rolled and lightning split the sky, the newly freed nation of Israel made a choice that would haunt them for generations. But to understand the full weight of this betrayal, we must first grasp what they had just experienced and what they were throwing away. Just months before this catastrophic moment, these same people had been grinding slaves under the whips of Egyptian taskmasters. Their cries had reached the throne of heaven, and God Himself had heard their anguish. What followed was a display of divine power that shook the ancient world to its core. 10 plagues had systematically dismantled the pride of Egypt, each one targeting the false gods that Pharaoh claimed to represent. Water turned to blood, darkness covered the land, and death itself swept through Egypt's households until the mighty Pharaoh finally released his grip on God's people. But the miracles didn't stop there. When Pharaoh changed his mind and sent his armies racing after the fleeing slaves, the sea itself became their highway to freedom. Walls of water stood at attention while over 2 million Israelites walked across on dry ground. Behind them, the most powerful military force on earth was swallowed by the collapsing waves. Can you imagine witnessing such raw divine power? Can you picture the awe, the gratitude, the absolute certainty that this God could handle anything? The journey to Mount Sinai was marked by continuous provision. When they thirsted, water flowed from rocks. When they hungered, bread fell from heaven each morning like divine snowflakes. Quail filled their camp when they craved meat, Their clothes didn't wear out, their feet didn't swell, and a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night guided their every step. This wasn't just survival, this was supernatural care that left no room for doubt about God's presence and power. Then came the moment that changed everything. At Mount Sinai, God called Moses up into the mountain to receive the law that would govern this new nation. But this wasn't just a legal transaction, this was a wedding ceremony. God was taking Israel as his bride, establishing a covenant relationship that would set them apart from every other nation on earth. The mountain itself became a throne room where the King of the universe would meet with his chosen people. The scene at Sinai was beyond human comprehension. Thunder crashed like artillery, lightning split the darkness, and the mountain itself trembled under the weight of divine presence. Smoke billowed from the peak as if the mountain were a furnace, and the sound of a trumpet grew louder and louder until the people begged Moses to speak with God on their behalf because they couldn't bear to hear his voice directly. This wasn't just impressive, this was terrifying in the most holy sense of the word. In this atmosphere of overwhelming divine majesty, God spoke the 10 Commandments. These weren't suggestions or guidelines. They were the fundamental laws that would define the relationship between the Creator and his people. The very first commandment cut straight to the heart of everything. You shall have no other gods before me. The second commandment drove the point home even deeper. You shall not make idols. These weren't arbitrary rules, they were the foundation stones of a covenant that would elevate Israel above every other nation on earth. 3 times the people agreed to this covenant. 3 times they declared their willingness to obey everything God commanded. Their voices echoed off the mountain walls as they proclaimed their loyalty to this God who had done the impossible for them. The covenant was sealed not just with words but with blood, the ancient symbol of unbreakable commitment. They weren't just agreeing to follow some distant deity, they were entering into the most sacred relationship possible with the God who had already proven his love through miraculous deliverance. Moses then ascended the mountain to receive the detailed instructions for building the tabernacle, the portable sanctuary where God's presence would dwell among his people. For 40 days and 40 nights Moses remained on the mountain, receiving blueprints for worship that would bring heaven to earth. The gold and silver they carried, gifts from the Egyptians who had been eager to see them leave, would be transformed into a dwelling place for the Almighty. But 40 days felt like an eternity to the people waiting below. Where was Moses? Had he died on the mountain? Had God consumed him? Fear began to creep in where faith had once stood firm. The pillar of cloud still hovered over the mountain. The thunder still rolled, but without Moses visible among them, doubt began its deadly work. This wasn't just impatience, this was a crisis of faith that would reveal the true condition of their hearts. What happened next would shock the heavens and devastate the earth. The same people who had witnessed water part and bread fall from the sky were about to commit an act so heinous that it would echo through every generation that followed. They were about to take the gold intended for God's tabernacle and forge it into the very thing he had forbidden. But how could this happen? How could people who had seen so much divine power turn so quickly to such devastating rebellion? The answer lies deeper than mere impatience or fear. It reveals something about human nature that we'd rather not acknowledge. Something about the condition of the heart that no amount of miracles can cure. What's coming next in this ancient drama will expose truths about covenant, about loyalty, and about the human soul that are as relevant today as they were 3,000 years ago. The moment of betrayal began with a simple gathering. When the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down from the mountain, they surrounded Aaron like a mob demanding action. Their voices rose in unison, echoing off the rocky terrain. "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Can you hear the desperation in their words? Can you feel the panic that was driving them to this moment of ultimate rebellion? But here's what makes this betrayal so much worse. These people weren't abandoning some distant theoretical God. They were rejecting the very God who had personally delivered them from slavery just months before. Every single person in that crowd had witnessed the plagues in Egypt. Every family had smeared lamb's blood on their doorposts and watched the angel of death pass over their homes. Every man, woman, and child had walked through the parted sea on dry ground. This wasn't ignorance leading to idolatry. This was willful rebellion against known truth. Aaron's response reveals something chilling about leadership under pressure. Instead of standing firm against this obvious violation of everything they had just promised, he caved immediately. "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing and bring them to me." These weren't just any gold earrings. These were the very treasures the Egyptians had pressed upon them as they fled, eager to see the back of the people whose God had devastated their land. The gold that should have adorned God's tabernacle was about to become the raw material for the most offensive idol imaginable. Think about the irony for a moment. While Moses was on the mountain receiving detailed instructions for building a sanctuary where the true God would dwell among his people, those same people were melting down their gold to create a false god. The timing couldn't have been more devastating. The very moment when heaven was reaching down to establish permanent fellowship with humanity, humanity was reaching up to craft its own substitute deity. Aaron took their gold and fashioned it with a tool into the shape of a calf. But this wasn't just any random animal. The bull was a powerful symbol throughout the ancient Near East, representing strength, fertility, and divine power. In Egypt, the Apis bull was worshipped as a manifestation of the god Ptah. Among the Canaanites, the bull was associated with El, the head of their pantheon. By choosing this particular form, Israel wasn't just creating an idol, they were embracing the very religious systems God had delivered them from. When Aaron finished his work and presented the golden calf to the people, their response was immediate and devastating. "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." The Hebrew word for gods here is Elohim, the same word used for the true God, but they were applying it to this lifeless statue. They were crediting their deliverance not to the living God who had actually performed these miracles, but to a golden cow that hadn't even existed until that moment. But the betrayal went even deeper. Aaron built an altar in front of the calf and proclaimed, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." He was trying to merge the worship of the true God with the worship of this idol. This wasn't just idolatry, it was syncretism, the deadly mixing of true worship with false worship that would plague Israel for generations to come. They weren't completely abandoning God. They were trying to worship him through means he had explicitly forbidden. The next morning brought scenes that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. The people rose early to offer burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the golden calf. But what started as religious ritual quickly descended into something far worse. The text says they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Then, that word revelry carries implications of sexual immorality and wild, uncontrolled behavior. This wasn't just worship, it was orgy. The golden calf stands as humanity's ultimate mirror, reflecting our deepest capacity for betrayal when fear overwhelms faith. Israel's devastating choice at Sinai wasn't just ancient history, it was prophecy about every human heart that trades divine faithfulness for golden substitutes. This story echoes in every broken promise, every abandoned covenant, every moment we choose comfort over commitment. The question isn't whether Israel could betray God so completely after witnessing such miracles, but whether we recognize the same capacity for betrayal lurking within ourselves. From the base of Mount Sinai to the choices we make today, the human heart remains the same, desperately in need of the very grace that Israel spurned. What golden calves are you crafting in your own life? What promises are you breaking while claiming to worship the God who delivered you? The tragedy of the golden calf isn't that it happened once, but that it happens every day in hearts that have forgotten the weight of covenant and the cost of betrayal.